Video. All right, so here we go.
So we were talking about the election, and
What is this? This is episode 4.
episode 4, part 2, I guess.
Part 2.
And segue from where we were talking, we were mentioning the election. One of the groups that sat out was the people upset about Palestine, which brings us to freedom of speech. And what's the guy's name?
You know what? Google it because I want to get this right.
Right.
And I wish I had a better memory for names. Names, horrible with names.
Normally, it's pretty good, but
I could say something, but I know if I'm wrong, I'll sound like a fool, so I'm not going to say it.
Khalil. No, that's not it.
So anyway, this guy was rousted from his apartment in New York City. He's a Colombian student. He had spoken. I'm not sure if he was the. I'm not sure if he was the leader of a movement. Or
he was actually the arbitrationist who was working between the campus and the protesters.
Yeah. Okay. So
but it gets even more interesting.
Capacity, yeah. So anyways, so let's see if we can get his name. So you go ahead and continue with the story.
Yeah. So he was here with a green card, so not full U.S. citizen, but basically, legally. Student, had a wife and kid, and not only was he arrested for what should have been free speech.
Yeah, here it is.
Anyways,
I thought it was.
Mahmoud Khalil.
And it was an M and a K, and it's Mahmoud Khalil. Okay.
Yeah. Not only was he arrested for something that has no legal reason. I mean, there was no violence involved. There was nothing that should have been a red flag for arresting somebody for that. It was occurring. So that's point number one. But point two, if they were going to, well, I mean, they did arrest him, but if there was legal precedent, then he would have been taken to court and explained what he was being, held for, et cetera, et cetera. And instead, he was basically kidnapped off the street and taken somewhere that nobody could communicate with him. And I believe that's still the situation. And so we have an extremely disturbing situation where if something isn't done, then the next time it's going to be just a false citizen, and it could be for, anyways. The line of free speech is rapidly receding, I guess is what.
Well, yeah, and one of the most troubling parts of this, and I think you touched on it, was nobody knows what he's been arrested for.
Technically, no.
Like they just said that they gave his name. They say where he's at. That he's on a green card. Like, what does that even mean? Like, who cares? Like, why did you arrest this man? like you can't just abduct somebody and not have some kind of arrest. What's the charge? What are the charges?
Exactly.
And I haven't heard a peep about what the charge is. All I've heard is that he was a protester, but they haven't even said that's why they arrested him.
Well, that was the insinuation, but I don't know whether they said it or not. Yeah.
They haven't said that even.
And it's the same kind of protests that have been going on for at least a year, give or take. So it's not like this is something out of the blue. It's not like he's said or done anything that hasn't been happening.
Look, if they had something on him that he was supporting Hamas,
they would have splattered it all across the news.
They would have said something. Yeah. That's my point.
Right.
He didn't do anything. He did nothing illegal. Absolutely nothing illegal. He's here legally. Been here legally for years. He's a student. He's on a green card. So this means at any time that you say something that the government, Republican or Democrat, if this precedent holds and this is allowed to happen, they can come and arrest you and not charge you with anything and kick you the fuck out of the country or put you somewhere and just hold you and detain you indefinitely with no charges. That's where we're at, folks. That's where we're at. I don't give a shit whether what you care about Palestine or don't care or want to support Israel and want them to have, condos on Gaza so you can go buy one.
It's not.
That's
even
what's
about
going
the
to happen.
issue.
What's going to happen
Yeah.
when the Democrats get in power, and then they come and arrest your ass because they don't like the shit you're saying about Israel. That's where we're at, folks. That's where we're at. So this is ridiculous. This is insanity, pure fucking insanity. I don't care what side of the fence you're on, how you're going to try to justify what they did to this man. You can't. You cannot justify it. You can't justify it. Either side.
No, I mean, and in fact, it's tempting to say more, but honestly, it clouds the issue to say anything more about it. The point is, we don't deal with justice this way. Had something been done wrong, and nothing appears to have been done wrong.
And they haven't even charged him with anything.
Right, exactly. This is, I mean...
Really? So this should be there should be, in my opinion, this should be far more outrage involved with this than what I'm seeing.
And far more outrage over this than just about anything else. And yet, I mean, there is a lot of outrage, but there's not as much as there should be. And so I think part of the reason why is just because there's so much going on that everybody's feeling overwhelmed.
Right. And here's the thing. This is not affecting directly yet that many people because he's on a green card. So that somehow makes a difference, right? So I'm not on a green card. Once again, it's this thing. Now, the veterans thing, people are getting upset about. Why? Because they're either a veteran, or they know a veteran, or their grandpa fought in World War II, or their or their dad's getting some kind of veteran benefit, and that's now getting stifled. So now they're out there. Now, I'm not saying that all these veterans are disingenuous. Some of them are progressive, and some are left-leaning. A good portion, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40% of them. Maybe not that many. I don't know. I know in my case when I was in the Army, that a lot of them are right wing, and some of them were progressive like myself when I was there. Probably more right leaning. What you would call right leaning back in that day, which would probably be today would be considered like left.
Centrist Democrat.
Centrist Democrat. That's what they were at back then when they were right leaning. But my point being is this. There's a lot of outrage and there's protests and there's things going on, right? For people that are actually getting affected, right? This is not affecting anyone yet because it's only happened to one person so far, and he's got a green card.
But like you said,
and he's pro-Palestine.
It sets a precedent. If it stands,
right.
The next step is the Trump administration going after potentially anybody over potentially anything.
This is once again what we were talking about: turning up the heat. Now, if you guys didn't see it, I was talking about the frog. You turn the heat up, they'll stay until they boil to death. This is just slowly upping the ante, slowly turning up the temperature, setting the Overton window further and further to where they're arresting people because they don't like what you're saying. Now, if you don't understand how dangerous that is, I don't know what to tell you, man. Read a book. If it hasn't been burned. So...
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video.
Or you can check it out without giving your name.
I mean, I saw a video in the last 2 or 3 days of a guy who had some kind of federal agents show up at his doorstep and want to talk to him about things he posted on social media.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that one is genuine, but the problem is the rate things are heading right now, they're going to be videos like that are real that start showing up more and more if things don't reverse course from what we were just talking about. And I mean, that's scary enough, but if things don't reverse, then it keeps going that direction and that's not good. And then that's not even being nice about it. That's
okay.
Yeah.
So then, so we start with that, right? So the other day, Trump was saying that any university that has protests that are pro, human rights, basically, Palestine, like, forget about it. Palestine
actually,
never.
okay, yeah, sure.
Palestine never existed. Blah blah blah. You can have all these stupid arguments, right? But basically, this comes down to human rights and human dignity and not massacring people and trying to figure out a solution, right? So people that are kind of against what's going on over there aren't necessarily anti-Zionism, even in a sense to where they don't think Israel should have their own state or shouldn't exist. They're just like a good mass majority of them probably are just humanists who are like, look, this is inhuman, right? So if you're for human rights, that you can't equate that to anti-Semitism, and you can't equate that to pro-Palestinian even, or even and definitely you can't extrapolate that to pro-Hamas and pro-terrorists. So what they've done is they've made it sound like if you're out there supporting basic human rights, global human rights, right? War, like defending against war crimes, because there's been they've been charged with war crimes by certain international groups. They've already been accused of war crimes. And if anything ever, goes down to where they're on, the United States doesn't back them anymore, and other nations, some of these guys might go up in front of war crime tribunals, like they did in Nuremberg. That's what they're doing over there, how atrocious it is. So they're committing these war crimes against humanity, in the name of self-defense, which what happened to them was not justified in any sense, but it was reactive abuse, and you understand what I'm getting with this. But anyways, back to my point. So he's going to defund universities if they just simply allow a protest, is his threat, which now puts these people up against a wall, because they're like, well, geez, we can't operate without some kind of federal assistance. So now they're going to clamp down on these protests simply because they've been threatened. And watch them capitulate. You watch how they're going to start getting. There was a lot of this is happening at Columbia. There is a journalist professor there who told his students to watch their social media, because they're monitoring it and they could come after you for your social media posts. So that's, once again, that's where we're at. That's the environment we're living in now. And and even further, okay, so there was that. Then he was trying to say that it's illegal to protest, or it's illegal to boycott Tesla. So now we have to buy, hey, listen, I boycott a Tesla every day because I don't buy one. What are
They're
you
expensive.
talking?
I mean, what the fuck?
What are you talking about? If I don't buy a Tesla, I'll go to jail? It's illegal to boycott now? What world are we living in? So protesters who storm the Capitol, threaten people's lives, beat up cops can get released, but somebody who just goes out and exercises their First Amendment free speech
Or
right,
even just wandering around not buying a Tesla.
Or just wandering around not buying a Tesla because they don't want one is now criminal. And holy shit. Maybe we should leave it at this, and then, we can talk about it later,
I had two, how long it's...
go ahead.
Just two quick points.
Bring up the points.
I forget whether it may have been Columbia, but one of these universities, there was a professor who got a message from, I believe it was the president of the university, that basically said, stop talking to your students about anything political. Not anything specific political, but anything political. Just stop. Just don't. But it was really funny because it said, don't communicate this through anything written or email. Just verbally, you need to not and it wasn't specific to Palestine or anything. It was just anything political. So that was my first thing. And then I'm seeing more and more of this stuff where it's generalized, which scares the crap out of me. Where it's one thing if it's Palestine or whatever. Not that that's good. It's not good at all. But when it's this general thing where you're not supposed to talk about it at all, that scares the crap out of me. So there was an elementary school where the teacher got in trouble, not for doing LGBT, those rights, not for rainbow rights, not for racial anything, but for a plaque that said everybody is welcome here. That's all it said. It wasn't trying to push any specific anything beyond that, just everybody's welcome. And somehow that was taken as something that could be considered offensive to people outside of the school. And so she was told that it had to come down. I mean, if you don't see that as some scary ass shit, then I don't know how else to put it.
Because the argument has to be at that point that certain individuals don't think everyone should be included.
Exactly.
Which makes them a racist bigot, misogynist, or something
Yeah.
of that sort.
Bigot of some form.
And that is what they'd rather support that than inclusiveness. So they're actually showing their cards that they are racist bigots, because that's all that is saying. We want to defend people's rights to be bigots and not defend people's rights to say we should all be inclusive. We'd rather have the bigots have their voice and not you. That's what it's saying, because we are bigots too. That's the message. And, you know, it's obvious and loud and clear in a case like that.
Yeah.
What's happening there? That's in Idaho, which doesn't surprise me. Like that's where that shit is really getting ugly in Idaho.
I mean, that's
white nationalism.
That's where they had the town hall where the woman got dragged out by the unidentified officers.
The brown shirts, yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
So that's where we're at in America, my friends. And so what was you?
Those were the points I had. Yeah.
The previous one was about the because I had something to say about that as well, but I can't remember what you said first before the woman with the everybody should be included. Which was just a bunch of hands in the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, that this is the environment.
The university's clamping down on discussion of anything that could be considered.
Right. Okay, this is what I was going to say about that. We had this discussion earlier too about how everything can be made political today, and then you just emphasized it once again by simply having something that said all lives count, or we.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it basically could have said all lives matter. I mean,
Right. So if they want to make it political, they will, and they will arrest you if they know that you are not on their side. They're going to make it political. So this professor can say whatever he wants. Don't talk about politics. Well, then obviously I can't say a goddamn word, because this is now about basic human rights. This is about core values. We've had this discussion. This is about reality. So if I tell the real history of America, I'm going to jail because I made it political? Because you could definitely make that argument. I made it political when I said we had slaves, because some people might not like that because it hurts their feelings.
Yeah.
That's it.